Tonight we are going to look at research ethics. So that's the topic that we are going to look at today, tonight. And let me just share my screen with you, and then we will, and then we can go from there. Do you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, I can see.
Thank you, Sada. Okay, so um, so tonight we are going to look at research ethics. So in research ethics, what are the different components that we are going to look at, and we will, mm, all and then we will look at why research ethics, what is research ethics, and why is it so important. So those sort of questions are what we are going to answer tonight. So in terms of the things that we are going to cover, we are going to look at the processes. I'm just trying to get some people in. We are going to look at the ethics processes in research, and then we are going to look at the ethics principles of research ethics. And then we will look at compare and contrast some national and international codes and policies for, in this case, it says health research because it's easier to get the comparisons in health research, but this applies to generally most of the educational and social research. So this would be quite applicable to all. So in terms of ethics, so if we say what do we mean by research ethics? What does that actually, for you guys, what does actually research ethics mean? Anyone?
For example, we had to consider the consent of the participants when we go to the field or we prepare the questionnaire.
Okay. Anyone else?
Clearing the ethics before starting the research, making sure that all the participants are agreed for the research.
Okay, so what Saddam has said in terms of, and Ahmed, you're saying that before you start the research, you need to have informed consent. Okay. My question remains. My question is, what when we say research ethics, what comes to your mind?
Some rules that we need to follow.
Some rules that you need to follow. So what is the difference between research ethics and then research design? Research design is also Adila, some rules that you have to follow, right?
A research ethics,
Yes.
I guess, means that's the right or wrong, to differentiate the right or wrong.
To
Just a
differentiate.
guess.
Okay, so differentiate between what is right and what is wrong. Okay, that's one way of looking at it. Any other?
If there are any harm, no other. So can you hear me?
I heard something and then I lost. Yeah.
To check if there is any harm that is going to be caused to the participants because of this, any physical or mental issues or distress.
Any physical or mental distress, any harm? Okay. Anything else? Anyone else? Okay. Right. So before I actually go into trying to explain what research ethics and what the research what are the different processes in research ethics, what I will do is I will give you a short exercise to do, maybe 10 minutes. What I will do is I will, as we did last time, I will put you into different groups, and with for each group, I will give you one uh, research guideline that is an international guideline, and then one group will get the MNU ethics policy. The question that I ask is, what are the guiding principles, or what are the core principles that apply to that whatever research guideline that you are given? Actually, the research guideline will very clearly and explicitly say on what principles, okay, on what principles are that guidelines actually built on. So you have to identify what those principles are based on, whatever guideline that is assigned to you. So identify what are the principles, and then I need you to explain to me what those principles actually mean. So identifying the core principles or the guiding principles of the ethical guidelines that are assigned to you. So I will put you into different groups, and then I will assign.
Sir,
Yes,
can you just write the question so that we will be able to see it? और बावर अच्छी किया है फिर हम लोग.
I said only one thing.
Okay.
Okay, but I will write it as well. But yeah, let me just so what are the core principles? Okay. Okay, so do you see this now, Ahmed?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. So the question here is, what are the core or guiding principles upon which the ethics guidelines is based on? And when I say ethics guideline, I will be assigning, as I mentioned, I will be assigning an ethics guideline for each one of you. I will be giving you actually the link for that particular guideline. So read through that, identify the core and guiding principles for that particular guideline, and then come back and then state what those guiding principles are and what does that mean. Okay, so that's basically so just to explain what those guiding principles are. That's basically that. Let me just see if I can put you into rooms. How many of you have 17? Okay. I will open the rooms now, and then for each room, I will go into the room, and then I will assign you the guideline. So I will open the rooms now first, and then one by one, I will try to assign the guidelines for each group. Okay. And then the total time for this is now it's 7:15. So by 7:30, let's see if we can finish this. Yeah, group 1.
From
Yes.
our group, Shafa is going to present. Shafa, are you here?
Yeah, here. So we got a Belmont report, which was generated in 1979, but with the growing concerns of unethical research practices in US and many other places in the world. The purpose of this guideline was to set clear ethical standards for protecting human research subjects. So, sir, do you want me to only focus on the guiding principles alone then?
Only guiding principles, yes.
Okay, so there are three main principles which is involved in this guideline, which is the first one is respect for the person, the other one is beneficence, and the third last one is justice. So in the respect for the person application wise in relation to research, we have to obtain informed consent. The researchers must disclose all relevant information, the purpose and how the research is going to be conducted, the risks, and if there are any benefits to it to the participant. And about the beneficence, to apply it in practice, we do have to come up with a careful risk benefit analysis before and during the research, and it should identify all potential risks, like if there are any physiological, psychological, social, or even legal or economic risks. Evaluation should be done, evaluation of research risks, evaluate whether the risks are justified by potential benefit to the specific group of people, and to select a design, a method to minimize the harm. Then the third one is justice. Justice as in selection of the subject, the research subject or the participant. The subjects, in selection of the subject or the participant, it should be chosen fairly and equitably. Vulnerable populations such as children and people with certain disabilities like cognitive disabilities should not be selected just because they are easily available or less likely to refuse. And basically, we should ensure fair distribution of research benefit. That's it, sir.
Okay, thank you. Right. The Belmont report was one of the earlier sort of guidelines, or one of the earlier ethical guidelines that came into me. There are guidelines that were used earlier as well, but one of the reasons why the Belmont report and the ethical guidelines of respect for persons, beneficence, and justice, especially these three principles, were applied or identified as the basic guidelines, is that this was the result of one of the notorious studies. I don't remember the Tuskegee syphilis. Actually, it's a syphilis study where the black population in in US, actually, they were some of them were treated, some were not treated, and they wanted to test the drug, and the participants, the actual Black population participants, their consent was not really sought, but they were actually paid to take part, and because they were poor, they just took part for the money. And that's the main reason why it is talking about one. It's talking about respect for persons who are involved. So you have to respect the participants. You have to uh, treat them equally. So that's one. The other is beneficence, where do good is what it actually emphasizes. So avoid any harm, and always try to ensure that you do good with the participants by doing with this research, by doing any research. So that is the second core principle, and the third is justice. Again, equity, because they were poor, because they were Black, they were not treated, and then they were used as the experimental group, or the control group in this particular sense. So, in order to avoid these sort of cases, the actual Belmont report, the ethical guidelines were built on those basic core principles, and these actually form a lot of ethical guidelines now are based on either some of these or all of these plus some other core principles. So what what I want to do, what I want you to understand from going through these guidelines is that ethics is not just a process that you do, or it's not just uh, getting someone's consent to do it, but there are reasons, there are guiding principles behind it, why actually these are important. So Belmont report is one of the notorious cases were actually dealt with. So since then, if you have to do any ethics, you have to ensure that you respect the people you are doing research with. You ensure justice with the people who you are doing research with, as well as you do good with the people who are doing research with. Okay, let's move on to the second one, which is the second group, group 2. Okay, group 2.
No, I'll start. We got Bella's guidelines, and from that, one of the key values we were able to understand is the informed consent of the participants, which means this basically highlight the importance of making sure not just taking their consent, but before taking their consent, the researcher should take all the steps necessary. Like the participant should be informed of what the purpose of the research is and what their role is and how it would be used, plus like the process of withdrawing. For example, if throughout the process of research, if there is any way they can withdraw, all those process should be informed and their consent should be taken. That is one thing. And then another thing we were able to find out is the integrity and confidentiality of the participants. Again, uh, anything that promote harm to the participant, that shouldn't be done, and all the personal information of the participants should be like, there should be an integrity among that. And also it talks about the importance of treating everyone fairly and promoting inclusivity. For example, any participant shouldn't be treated differently because of their religion or age or any kind of cultural beliefs they have. So inclusivity and then informed consent plus the confidentiality of the participant, those are the three core values we were able to get from the report.
Okay, thank you, Rafta. Those were some of the means to achieve the guiding principles of BERA guidelines. The BERA guidelines actually try to focus on, again, it is respect, but in the case of BERA guidelines, the underpinning guidelines or the principles underpinning the guidelines are actually the respect for the person, and then the respect for the knowledge, respect for the democratic values, respect for the quality of the research, and then the respect for the academic freedom. In other words, the ethics should be built on this. So when we talk about respect for the person, and I think that's where you were talking about the informed consent, the confidentiality. So these are all ethical guidelines that you follow in order to ensure that your principal respect for the person is achieved. So that's one of the guidelines or guidance that voluntary informed consent. So that is the respect that you give to the person, and then confidentiality, and then the openness and disclosure. That's the other. So you have to be able to you have to be very open to the actual participants. You have to ensure that full disclosure of the research should be, and then the participant should have the right to withdraw at any point in time. So these are all things that that you do in order to ensure that you give that respect. And then in addition to that, the academic integrity, sorry, the academic freedom. So the actual sponsor of the research will not have a say in the final result. So the final result will be based on the actual findings and the data, not on the sponsors or what the sponsor says. So that's the respect for the academic freedom. Respect for democracy is actually based on the participant selection, ensuring that it's equitable participant selection and so on. So the BERA guidelines actually focuses in terms of the principles, the core principles are the respect for the person, respect for the knowledge that you create, and respect for democracy. And it emphasizes on, as Rafta has mentioned, informed consent, right to withdraw, openness, and so on. Okay. Let's move on to group 3, ERA code. Group 3. Yeah.
Yes. So we got Code of Ethics, American Education Research Association. And for our principles, we have professional competency, integrity, having responsibility in a professional, scientific manner, respecting the rights, dignity, and diversity of others, and also a social responsibility. So basically, when it comes to social responsibility, it's the ethical guideline or the principle, which is one of the most important, where you should know your community and have an impactful, meaningful contribution. In order to have a good impact, you have to have a good contribution and an understanding of the society around you. And when it comes to the professional and scientific responsibility, we have to prioritize our ethical behavior. We have to seek advice from our peers. We have to make sure that the public trusts and values what we have. And when it comes to professional competency, of course, we have to be qualified, educated, and trained, and have the experience necessary to do such researches as well.
Okay. So you covered all the 5, Ushan?
Professional competency, integrity, then professional scientific scholarly responsibility, respect for people's rights, dignity, and social responsibility.
Yeah. Okay. So this is this particular guideline, again, it's building on the other principles, because the previous ones that we have talked about, we have talked about the respect for people's rights, dignity and diversity in terms of respect. We have already talked about that. I mean, other guidelines do focus on this. The integrity to some extent, the last guidelines, the BERA guidelines actually focused on this. And then the professional competence. Again, this particular guideline actually talks about professional competence in terms of the competence of you ensuring that you actually give the best that you highest level of competence, as well as you recognize your limitations when carrying out your research. So that's how. And then the academic freedom that we talked about in the BERA guidelines. Here they're talking about the professional, scientific, and scholarly responsibility and academic freedom. So it's actually linking those with ensuring that there is a responsibility, you as a researcher, to ensure that the highest level of professionalism standards are maintained. And then finally, of course, you have a social responsibility to ensuring that doing good. That is basically what we started off with the Belmont report. Doing good it actually comes up here is mostly social responsibility. So you can see that mostly these ethical principles in different names, under different names, but are looking at similar sort of core principles. It builds on what we actually have. Right. So let's move on to group 4. Yeah, group 4.
Okay. In group 4, we got ESRC framework for research ethics, which is updated on January 2015. So according to that, the guiding principles guide says we need to make sure that the participants should have dignity and should have autonomy, and no one should force the participants to take part in the research. It is their own decision to participate. And it also talk about the benefits and risks about the research. So if any participants feels like they want to move out from the research, they feel free to go from the research. And about the transparency, about the purpose and the methods, it says that in point number 3, that page 4, it says that individual participants, individual research participant and group preference regarding anonymity should be respected. So it has to be respected and informed to the participant as well. And about the confidentiality and data privacy, it says that the participants' preference regarding anonymity will be respected, and always that confidentiality of data will be maintained, and it will be protected. Any data will be protected. So and in the 5th, it says about the integrity and the transparency. So about the integrity, so there should be a quality and transparency procedure, how it has to be reviewed or the decision is made. And last, it says about the conflict of interest. So we have to see about the researchers, what is their intention of the research. Adila, is there anything more to add?
Yeah, it should be explicitly stated before the research method is employed. The participants should be informed of these things. Basically, all of the 6 points is about keeping the participants informed of the things that will be the steps that will be taken throughout the research, starting from the consent until executing the research method and analyzing the findings and so on.
Okay, so here sorry. So here the ESRC has 6 principles, and I think you have talked about those. In the ESRC, the key principles are more focused than the other principles that we have talked about. In the other principles that we have seen in previously, we were talking about respect is one, beneficial is one, and then the what was the other one? The diversity, integrity, and so that was more broader. But in the ESRC, the key principles, they talk about voluntary participation free of coercion. So it's very clear that this is one principle that needs to be established. So when we talk about respect, yes, that is one. But in addition to respect, it's also talking about the actual participation has to be voluntary and should not be coerced. And then, as you mentioned, Ahmed and Adila, beneficial here it's specifically talking about the maximum benefit of the research and minimize potential risk. Again, the one of the core principles of ethics when we talk about ethics. Full disclosure. So again, openness and disclosure we have talked about in ERA guidelines as well. So here it's very specifically saying that all the information needs to be given to the staff and participants. And then when they talk about respect, they very specifically say respect to the participant and ensuring that confidentiality and anonymity are maintained. Then talking about integrity, again, previous guidelines also talk about integrity, but here they say integrity is one, and then quality of the research, which previously we talked about the professional competence and scholarly competence. So quality as well as transparency in the design and execution. So not only the information should be, but the actual transparency should be given in the design as well. And then finally, any conflict needs to be declared partial or full conflict. So this is something that we talked about in BERA guidelines as well, and ERA guidelines. So this is actually, if there is any conflict, you have to. Right, group 5. Yeah.
So,
yeah.
We got research ethics when children are involved. So in this case, there are more guidelines that the researcher has to follow. The first thing is the person who is going to research should be competent. Then we have to check his values, his beliefs, how his perception about children also. He has to get the approval of ethics committee or ethics board, approval for his research. In addition to that, they have to decide whether it is necessary or not. Is this research is needed? So if it is needed only, it is allowed to conduct. Then other points or other principles are almost similar, very few differences. For example, risk. Each and every research, there will be some risks. But the researcher has to find ways to manage it. Also, he has to find ways to support how it should be managed or mitigated, the risks. And since the participants are children, he has to get the consent of the parents also. Sometimes the wider community's approval also, sometimes they may have to get. So compared to other research, there are more guidelines that the
Additionally,
researcher has to
Madam
follow.
Sir, can I add something? Actually,
Yes.
the main ethical principles underlying here is like respect, the benefit, and the justice. So mainly this research is conducted by Eric along with the UNICEF. So the ERIC is the one which gives the understanding to plan and conduct ethical research, mainly in the children and the young people. So the mainly here we have three principles: respect, benefit, and justice. So the respect in the sense they are talking about the respect which is linked closely with the rights and children and the context of their lives. The benefits, by doing this research, what benefits they are going to get? So benefits like non-maleficence and beneficence, that has to be done. Then at last the justice. So when they are going to do research on the children, what justice they are going to give? So that's the main three principles here.
Okay, thank you, Ruben. Thank you, Saddam. In terms of the UNICEF guidelines, as Saddam has mentioned and as Ruben you have mentioned, those are the key main principles, and the what we have talked about earlier in terms of dignity, justice, no harm, informed consent. So all those are already there. The three that actually I would like to highlight here is one which Saddam has highlighted as well, is when we are talking about within UNICEF guidelines, when you talk about the children, one aspect that, or one key principle that you have to look at is the emphasis on the cultural context of the children within the so uh, so what cultural context is the children in? So you respect that cultural context when you do research. So that is one aspect that is very clear in terms of this particular guideline. So one guiding principle, and because it's UNICEF and it's because it's UN, and I think Ruben has highlighted this. It has to be a right-based approach. So all actions concerning the children has to be viewed through the lens of their rights. So looking through everything that you do, you have to see, okay, how are the rights of the children, how are the rights of the children protected by doing this? So what are the rights they have? Are we actually maintaining those rights or not? So that's one aspect that you have to look at. And finally, everything that you do, the primary consideration in all decisions and in all actions that you make under UNICEF guidelines is that it has to be the best interest of the child. So that's the other key underlying principle. Again, this does not nullify the other principles like dignity, justice, and respect and all that, but the best interest of the child has to be one of the core guiding principles in the UNICEF guidelines. So those are the ones, and then let's move on to the last group 6.
Yes.
Yeah, there.
We got the National Ethical Guideline for Health Research involving participants in animals. It is Nepal Health Research Guidelines. Basically, the basic ethical principle, it has basic 4 ethical principles. The 4 principles are respect for the autonomy of an individual, beneficence and non-maleficence, justice, and the last one is respect for the environment from the basis for the ethical evaluation of health research. And it is reviewed and updated on July 2019. So it says an individual's right to decide what is best for her or him cannot be overruled by the researchers, and researchers must be safeguard the interest of the individuals. And also it says that the research should promote the health of the populations and represented, and malfeasance means they do not harm and requires not to cause or deliberate. And the third one, justice. For example, individuals with similar health complaints should be treated equally among all the other participants, and it requires the equitable distributions of the burdens and benefits. And the last one is the respect for the environment. It requires the principle that health research should be undertaken with the respect for the social, cultural, and natural environment, and also the historical heritage of the society. So also it includes other principles that have extend with the general principles. Those are principles of essentiality, principles of voluntaries, and principle of non-exploitations.
Okay. Right. So again, Hidayah, here it's similar set of principles that we have looked at in the other ones as well. In the case of Nepal, respect for autonomy, which is the respect for the person, and then beneficence and non-beneficence we have talked about, justice we have talked about. The only addition here was the respect for the environment, which is mm, to some extent covers in other guidelines as well, but here there's a more focus on the respect for the environment given in the national ethical guidelines, health research guidelines of Nepal. As you can see, in terms of research ethics, the it's not just ethics should not be seen as something that we do because we want to do data collection. There are some processes or approvals that we need to do. So that is why that we are doing this. So as a researcher, you need to understand, you need to believe that research ethics has an important place in your research and the way that you design your research. So it's not only research ethics is not a process where you just get approval from the research ethics committee and then do that. But it is uh, a guidance or it's a guideline that will guide your research, your data collection, your research design. So when you design your research, you have to think, okay, how do I manage all this? So now, having gone through all this, let me ask this question again. What is research ethics? No one is going to answer.
It is a guideline that we are going to conduct our research.
Okay.
It's a way to make sure that the subjects that we use, that we are making sure that all the rights of the subjects are, you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
Maybe the set of principle guidelines.
It's a,
Regulations which helps us to maintain the dignity and responsibilities we have towards the fellow participants
Yes.
that are in our research and do it in a more responsible and scientific way.
Yeah, I think you have got the gist of what research ethics is. Let's just see. So what is research ethics? As you have mentioned, it is actually concerned with the rights versus wrong in research. So research ethics actually allows us to identify and ensure that we do right by the participants, right by not only the participants, but we also do right by we talked about environment, we talked about knowledge, we talked about the academic integrity, we talked about academic freedom and all this. So we do right by not only the persons, the participants, but right by the discipline. So all that. So it's concerned with what is right, what is wrong. Research ethics is um, the process that we follow within our research that ensures our participants' dignity, rights, and welfare are protected. And it's a process that applies at every stage of the research. It's not just something that we do just before data collection or before we get our research proposal approved. It is something that we need to follow throughout our research at every stage. So that is what we should think of research ethics as. So why does it matter? I think we have actually covered this quite a lot now in terms of going through the principles. Because we need to protect the vulnerable groups, children's communities, the disadvantaged groups, vulnerable groups. So all these people, in order to protect them, we need to follow a proper research ethics guideline. And the other thing is that research ethics actually builds trust in our research findings, because if we follow a proper research ethics protocol, then people would actually trust that, okay, we have followed the proper guidance, proper principles, and also it avoids misuse of data or harm to the participants. So what one of the again in terms of principles, we talked about confidentiality, we talked about anonymity, we talked about data integrity, we talked about the data protection and all that in terms of principles. When it comes to your research, although you may have data that you collected that you can use in other ways, but if your data is collected for a particular purpose, particular research, then you cannot really use that data for any other purpose without consent from the participants. So you need to get the consent from the participants on how to use that data outside that research. Even for the research, you need to get the consent, but if you got the consent to use that within your research, you cannot use that outside your actual research. In terms of the ethical frameworks that we follow, this is actually on top of the principles. Okay, one is deontological frameworks. Deontological frameworks are focusing on duty-based. So, in the case of deontological frameworks, the frameworks are built on that. Okay, you have to do the right thing. Okay, so every action that you do has to be the right thing. Let's say, for example, a very simple example would be something like one of the duties is that you don't lie. Okay, let's say you in your research you don't lie. So that is the so the right action is that you always say the truth. But there may be cases where a lie may actually lead to a better consequence. Some may say that. Okay. However, in the case of deontological frameworks, that cannot be done. So that is duty based. So always it should be the right action. In the case of consequentialist frameworks, the final action, if benefits, if actually so you weigh cost versus the cost benefit. So the final, if the final benefit is higher, then consequentialist frameworks may say that, okay, a slight harm may be okay if the final product is better. So that again, there are no right or wrong ways here. You have to see what your research is, what your research questions are, and then focus on this. And then there are the virtue ethics, which actually focuses on the actual virtues: integrity, sincerity, respect. So there are certain virtues that you take, and then you focus. Those ethical frameworks would be focused on those aspects of within all the depending on what framework you choose, you have to abide by those frameworks. And again, in most of our cases now, the ethics frameworks are chosen for us because, let's say, if we are talking about MNU, the MNU ethics guidelines will have core guiding principles set, and then a set of rules that you follow by. So if you follow by that, then the MNU ethics framework, you will be actually uh, you you will be within the ethical framework of the MNU or whichever research ethics that you are following. Some of the common ethical issues, again, we have seen this, but I will just go through this. Informed consent, I think we all have understood, we all know, and we all have talked about. So informed consent is that if you're going to do any research on a participant, then it has to be informed consent, okay? And sometimes we talk about voluntary informed consent as well. It's very important that we understand the terms here. Consent is one, okay? The actual study that I was talking about in the case of Belmont report before that, some of the studies that were done before the Belmont report, consent was given by the participant, but they did not know what they were giving consent to. Okay, so informed consent is that when you give consent, you have to ensure that the participant knows that what they are giving the consent for, so that they are actually informed before giving consent. And then the other is that it should not be coerced. So you can inform and then you can get consent, but you may actually be given that consent involuntarily. So it has to be volunteer informed consent. Okay. Let's say, for example, some of you are most of you are in education sector, and some of you are in schools, and some of you may be leading teachers, some of you may be principals. So if you actually want to do research within your school, and then you go to your teacher and then you say, I want to do this research and I want you to give consent, then this is a research all about, they may actually think or they may be forced to give consent because you are their supervisor. So there may be these sort of things that you need to take into consideration. The other aspect is confidentiality and anonymity. Again, these are two different concepts we need to understand. Any research, okay, almost all the research should actually ensure confidentiality. Confidentiality means that you don't reveal who the participant is. There may be cases where it's revealed, but that has to be based on the consent and all that. But the general idea is that confidentiality needs to be maintained, which means that the participant, who the participant is, that the reader would not know. Okay. The other case is anonymity. Anonymity is where even you as a researcher don't know who the participant is. So these are two different concepts. Anonymity means that whoever is giving the information is giving that anonymous. So you won't be able to identify. So generally, this anonymity can only be achieved in cases where you don't meet the participant to take the data, but let's say, for example, a survey or the case even. But in qualitative research, it will be very unlikely, but I don't know, maybe there may be cases where we do that, but confidentiality is you meet the participant, you take the data, but you ensure that their name does not is not revealed. And when doing this, if you have only let's say Maldives is a very small place, and then let's say you're taking from a very small island, everyone may know everyone. So if you say, okay, I'm not going to give the name, but this person is someone who has got a degree, who works at the island council, and who is a male or a female. I think by then everyone may know if it's a small community. So confidentiality is something that you will have to ensure that, okay, the person cannot be identified by reading your report. So that the second part is part of that identification and non-traceability. And then the third is beneficence and duty of care. I think we have talked about this. So do good should be your motto always when it comes to research. So doing good. Power relations and exploitations, we've talked about you being in a position of power. You shouldn't exploit your the subordinates in data. And then ownership and control of data. Again, this is something. So who owns the data? Who controls the data? It should be you as the researcher, or it should be somewhere that needs to be and kept protected. Access to data and its archiving should be managed so that, again, access cannot be given to people who should not. Gaining access to the actual participant, there should be a protocol to do that. And then to whom are your responsibilities, and for what are those responsibilities for? And then the other is overt and covert research. Mostly our researchers has to be open and clear, informed, and all that. There may be cases where we do take data without the participant knowing that we are collecting the data, because sometimes some research you need to conceal some information if you are going to have an authentic data. So in those cases, more rigorous ethical approval process has to be, you need to go through that before you get the, and then disclosure. So to whom are you going to disclose this data or your report? Is it going to be public or is it going to be private? So is it going to be something that you need to you're going to put it on open access so that everyone sees it, or is it going to be for a private group? So that is something that you need to ensure, and then based on that, your your research methods, your guidelines, your data collection, all that would be different. So you have to focus on those. And then there are others which we have actually talked about, interests at stake, the rights, permissions, and protections. We have talked about that. The roles and powers of research sponsors and commissioners. Again, we talked about this in terms of principles, but something that you have to focus on. Regardless of who actually commissioned your research, who sponsors that research, they should not be allowed, or they should not actually dictate the findings. So it should be, findings should be yours based on the data. Okay. And then the sensitivity of the researching with children with UNICEF guidelines, we've talked about this. You need to avoid selective, partisan, or skewed data analysis. And then taking value positions in your data interpretations, again, depending on your research, but being judgmental is something that you need to avoid. I think we have talked about this, so let's move on. Informed consent, I think I've given this in terms of informed consent, but uh, 4 elements: competence, voluntarism, full information, and comprehension. So informed consent actually involves all that. We have talked about voluntarism. We have talked about full information. We have actually talked about comprehension. Competence actually, the participant should be competent to give the informed consent. Okay, so you may inform the participant all the details. Yeah, they may volunteer, but if the participant is not competent to give that, let's say a minor may not be competent to give, a person who is vulnerable may not be. So in those cases, competency needs to be maintained. So, and it should not be a one-time consent. It is an ongoing. So their consent actually goes through, which means that even before publishing, if they say, okay, I want to withdraw, they should be able to withdraw. Some challenges: who gives consent? So is it the individual, the family, or the community? In some cases, it's the community. So there are rare cases there. And then the cultural forms. So do we get it is written or oral consent? And then power imbalances. I think we have talked about confidentiality and anonymity, privacy and disclosure. Again, we have talked about the public and private knowledge. We have talked about the risk of accidental traceability. So ensuring that it cannot be traced back to the participant. And then you need to also ensure that you handle sensitive topics like abuse, religion, politics. So these things you handle these sensitively. The other is non-maleficence and beneficence. So do no harm and do good. So in terms of these two, which should you focus on? You may be doing good while actually harming. So again, it depends on how much harm we are talking about, how much. So always look at these two principles and see, okay, focus on ensuring do no harm, do good always. But there may be cases, let's say, for example, if you're going to test a drug, okay, there may be side effects of this. You may know that there are side effects of this. But if you are going to actually bring this to the market, if it is something that is going to be beneficial for the humans, then you can declare those side effects and then do the human trials. Okay. But if the harm is very much, then of course those things should be avoided. Physical, psychological, and social risks must be minimized. So it's not only physical, it's not only even psychological. There may be social risks. So by exposing a group of people to a research, they may be their social exclusion or those sort of risks. So you have to ensure that those are minimized as well. And then it should be beneficial to generally beneficial to the community. Justice and fairness, I think we have talked about this, equal treatment to the participants, avoid exploiting. Power and reciprocity. Again, we've talked about you don't abuse power and avoid coercion or hidden agendas. I'm just listing those because we have talked about this in the principles. So these are the main principles in terms of research ethics. So whatever you do in your research, regardless of what the research ethics committee says or what the research approval process says, you should ensure that you respect the people that you are doing research on. It should be beneficial. You should be ensuring justice, integrity, and voluntary participation. And then we have talked about sponsored research and its integrity as well. They don't dictate the findings, the research data does. And then you should resist any alteration, any pressures to alter the data. So that is your responsibility is in terms of integrity. Now comes the formal part or the process part. Mostly we have seen different codes of ethics, and so mostly in order to ensure ethics, there are codes and ethics committees. Even MNU has an ethics committee which you have to go through. So ethics committees are gatekeepers. They review proposals, they risks, consents, and then data protection, and they are there to prevent any unethical studies. Again, it doesn't mean that you don't have a responsibility to ensure all ethical guidelines are followed. Even if they give you the approval, if you know that there is an unethical practice within your research, you should actually not do it. Some of the critics of this is that it's overly bureaucratic and time consuming. Yes, sometimes ethical committees, ethical approvals are really time consuming. Especially health-related ethics are time-consuming, and in our case, in the Maldives, it's more as well. But there are things that we also have issues with in terms of time. But generally, it is time-consuming, and then sometimes there is also the critique that some of these ethics committees, they follow the rules, but they don't really reflect on the ethical principles. So that is something that we should be concerned with. And sometimes there is also the critique that we impose Western norms on our cultural. So that is also something that it has to be context based as well. So we have talked about Belmont. So this is something things that we have already covered. In terms of our ethical guidelines, because we are doing education, we don't really have to worry too much about the National Health Research Council, but that is a legislative body for health research. So there is a National Health Research Council which from which you need to actually get approval before you do any health research in the Maldives. MNU ethics policy, I've given the link here. MNU ethics policy also has some ethical guidelines, ethical principles that it follows, and then there are ethical guidelines that we follow. And when it comes to doing research in the Maldives, the Islamic values, our cultural norms, these are things that we have to take into account. So that those legally it may be right, but we respecting the participants involve all this. So their culture, their religion, their norms, these are things that you need to follow. In our case, our focus is more on community and family consent rather than individual. Of course, individual consent is there, but still our culture has a family sort of we may say that it's individual consent over 18 legally, that's fine, but there are cases where we wouldn't need to have family consent. And then emphasis on protecting children, vulnerable groups are some again in our culture or in the South Asian culture, these are things that we need to focus on. Sometimes we forget about the actual rights of these groups when we want to research. So we have to think from that aspect. The key takeaways for us is that ethics is a continuous and it is situated and it's culturally sensitive. So it's not a process that you do one off and then that's it. The principles is consent, confidentiality, beneficence, and justice. And we need to balance the universal norms with our local practices. So that's the general guidelines or key takeaways from our ethics. Right. Any questions? Any comments? Any questions at this point? If you don't have any questions, I think this particular topic I will end there, and then there is no at the moment there are no online tutorials on this topic, but I will put one. But there are other online tutorials that are now up there. What the online tutorial 2 is now open. It's been open for a couple of days now. Online tutorial 2 is based on literature review, where you look at 3 articles based on your topic, which you have. Tutorial 1, you actually gave the topic and the research problem, research questions, and all that. And then based on that topic, based on that title, identify at least 3 literature, 3 articles, and then there are sort of things that you need to identify. So it's more on an annotated bibliography that you have to write. So the author, the year, and a brief summary of that. So that's what you're supposed to do for the online tutorial 2. And then next.
Sir, wasn't it due last night?
I think it's due.
It was due last night.
Maybe my mistake then. I think I will extend that anyway. But if you have submitted, I will give you some feedback on this. Because I was we didn't have class last week. You were supposed to do this online tutorial last week, but I did not give those instructions, so I will just extend. The next tutorial would be on research design, which will be opened starting tomorrow. So you will have next week to do that. So so every other week from now on, every other week, I will put a tutorial for you. So the week that we have the online class, I will not put a tutorial, but because we missed the first online class, I have added 2 tutorials, tutorial 1 and 2, and then 3 is for the next week, and then every other week I will put 1 online tutorial. So even if I don't inform you, just ensure that you do that. Submit. Submission is a requirement for your attendance. Feedback is I can only give feedback based on what you have submitted. So I will try to give feedback as soon as I can within the week, if possible. Okay. If it is late, then again my feedback would be a bit late as well, but I will try to make sure that I give feedback as much as possible within the week. Okay, that is it from me. Any questions, any comments? If not, I think we will end there. So
will the tutorials have any weightage for the final results?
Tutorial marks will not be counted towards your final marks, but tutorial submissions, if you don't submit adequate number of tutorials, then you may not get the attendance to sit the final exam.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, sir. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I'm here with the 2 Chinese students here.
Yeah.
Because they just joined this week.
Yeah.
This is their first class.
Yeah.
Is it possible to meet you somewhere in the office to check more detail about this? subjects?
Yes. What's
Are
your
you, you can call me Lin.
Lin?
I'm not a student. I'm coming to help them for the first few classes.
Yeah. Lin, I will arrange set of times because we need to catch up as well on the
Yes.
missed classes, as well as I think I will have to have some regular contact with them. So because they will be on campus and they are mostly around, I will arrange some time for them to come and meet me, and then we will go through that. Unfortunately, tomorrow and Wednesday and Thursday, I'm busy with the symposium. So most probably I will be able to give time starting next week. But this week I will find some time to meet them for a short while, and then we will arrange some time starting next week.
Okay, so here there's one student like Jiang Wenju, the account I'm using now.
Yeah.
He doesn't speak English, so if we can meet when they go to meet you, it's better I'm also there.
Yeah.
And I'm leaving Maldives on Thursday afternoon.
Maybe I will arrange sometime tomorrow for the first meeting, and then we will go.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
Okay.
How can I contact you?
I think the faculty has your contact, right?
Okay, yeah, the coordinator
Yeah.
Wasali, Wasila, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, she has me.
Vasila is your contact, as well as the Viber group. My contact details are there as well.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so tomorrow morning you will let me know the time, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Almost time, 15 more minutes. Okay, thank you all. I will see you again in a fortnight's time. So that will be 29th. So 29th, we will have class, but you need to complete your tutorials, 2 tutorials before then. That is the literature tutorial and the design tutorial.
So, the first assignment, literature, it is also on due the next week. So it says that it is aided. So what kind of aid that we are getting? Actually, I want to change my topic, and so how could I contact you?
You have my contact, Viber contact, and my email, so you can contact me. Aided, actually, aided and unaided, what that means is the MNU terminology. Aided means that you, the assignment that you do, you can actually do at home. You can get help, or it's aided through literature, the whatever you want to refer to. So it's the take-home assignments are actually aided assignments. Unaided ones are assessments that you do in front of the supervisor, in front of the lecturer, or under controlled environments like exams. So if you do a presentation, that means that it's unaided because you are doing it in front of the lecturer or the examiner, or exams would be unaided. Take-home assessments, assignments, those are aided ones, because then we don't know from where you are getting your assistance to do that. So that's why it's called aided assignments. But if you want to change anything, if you want any help from me, you can always contact me. Viber group has got my contact details, and also you have my email address as well, so you can always contact me through those.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's it. That's all from me. Thank you very much.